Florida's citrus industry was dealt more devastating news following a lackluster growing season. A report from the U.S. Department of Agriculture revealed just over 14.5 million boxes of citrus were produced during the 2024-25 season, the lowest total since 1920. Citrus greening, labor shortages, trade wars, and the selling of groves is adding to current pressures, not just for citrus, but for all of Florida's agriculture. For more on the state of agriculture in Florida, we are joined by Dr. Barry Goodwin, a professor in the Department of Agriculture and Resource Economics with North Carolina State University and a presidential fellow here at FGCU. Thank you, Dr. Goodwin, for joining us.
Yeah, thank you. Happy to be here.
So the U.S. Department of Agriculture said this year's citrus production in Florida was the lowest since the Great Depression. Do citrus have a viable future in Florida?
Well, I think so. I mean, it all depends upon, of course, what can be done with citrus greening, which has devastated the industry. That's a major hurdle that I think the industry is still working through. But certainly it's had a devastating effect on the industry, and the future really depends upon what can be done with greening, I think.
Well, as you know, this past year, Alico Inc. became the latest company to close its citrus production. And there's also concerns about Tropicana potentially leaving in the Bradenton area. Do you see agriculture in Florida sort of transitioning to other crops at this point, in the sense that do they have any other option?
Well, I think there is the acreage has been lost, and I think other crops may have a better future in some cases. But again, I think it goes back to what can be done with greening.
So with the new tariffs issued by the Trump administration, it's obviously had a big impact on farmers across the country in industries like soybean and corn. What would the impact be, let's say, to citrus, to watermelon? What is this added pressure? How much added pressure does it add to farmers?
Yeah, I mean, it's had really where the impacts come in, and it has had an impact in this regard, is the retaliatory measures that other countries have taken. And I think Canada is a prime example as it affects Florida, that they've placed their own tariffs in response to the U.S. tariffs that have been put into place, and that's driving down prices. It's having a negative effect on the market for those goods that previously were going into Canada. Oranges is a good example of that.
Sure. So Southwest Florida is known for tomatoes, but tariffs and a lack of workers have led to farms reportedly being plowed over, fields that were potentially good. There was excitement after the Trump administration ended a U.S. and Mexico agreement on tomato imports, but with these worker shortages and the tariffs, could we see the tomato industry struggle as well?
Well, it's struggling right now. I mean, Mexico sort of rushed in and dumped a lot of tomatoes in advance of these agreements, and that pushed down prices. I mean, the prices, to my understanding, are below cost right now. And so, have seen actually some farmers plowing up their tomatoes in Southwest Florida, and in South Florida in general. So, the tomatoes is a particular case, but there's competition from Mexico in place that earlier in the year had a big impact on the tomato market, and I have heard of farmers plowing their tomatoes under and the labor shortages, a concern over the immigration policies had an effect also there. It's a very labor intensive industry, so to the extent that workers are not coming to work or afraid to work in the sector, that's having an effect as well. And I think the labor shortage has been something that farmers have realized.
What is the solution for farmers in Florida when we're talking about citrus, when we're talking about watermelons, when we're talking about tomatoes?
Yeah, I mean, this is an issue nationwide, really. About 50% of our agricultural labor force, is undocumented immigrants. And so it really depends upon what the administration decides to do there. But I think it is, an important issue. The focus, there's a lot of noise right now, I think, about, and the focus has been on, removing the criminal element and that sort of thing. But it has put a chill over the entire sector of the undocumented workers that work in agriculture. So I think labor shortages are something that's a concern, and it is just have to see how things work their way through with the immigration policy.
Do you see any way that tariffs in the end will help farmers in this country and in Florida?
Well, it could, to the extent that, markets where the U.S. previously was competing with other countries like Mexico, to the extent that tariffs can lessen some of that competition, it could be a positive thing, but it all depends upon how they respond to the U.S. tariffs. And that's been, as I said, the retaliatory tariffs with Canada, for example, I think have had a negative effect on farmers.
Since you brought up immigration, I just want to tap into that. What do farmers want when it comes to getting more help on their farms? I spoke to a citrus farmer a while back who just talked about, the challenge of getting, enough hands to help him.
Yeah, I mean, I think immigration policy is going to have to address this, and especially for the farm sector in the U.S. And where it's going to go is just hard to say. It seems to me to be, still working out what a coherent policy would be. But I don't see how, all of our undocumented workers, how there can be a large scale deportation of these individuals, because we're very dependent upon that labor. So I think the future of the industry very much depends upon what the administration chooses to do with this farm sector workforce.
If I can end with consumers, obviously we're starting to see those prices increase. What do you anticipate consumers will see in the future when it comes to citrus, when it comes to tomatoes, watermelons?
Yeah, anything that's imported, I think we're going to see a price increase. That's just what tariffs do, is raise the prices of imported goods. It's a mixed bag, really, to the extent that it's like in the tomato case, to the extent where we have a country that's responding in a certain way that drives down prices. Of course, that's good for consumers. If the tomatoes never make it to the market, it's not going to help consumers very much. But low prices, to the extent that trade policies would push down prices, that can be a boon for the consumer. But on the same, by the same token, it's a negative for farmers who are dependent upon that. And I know the price of tomatoes went down tremendously over the last 6 months or so when some of this stuff was going on.
Yeah.
So to the extent we depend upon imported goods, fruits and vegetables from Mexico or other countries, the tariff is going to raise prices, and consumers are going to feel that at some point.
Dr. Barry Goodwin, we so appreciate your time. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks for watching. We've got more great content for you, from news to the arts to the environment. So be sure to like and subscribe to WGCU's YouTube channel and follow us on our social media platforms for the stories that matter to you.